Good morning, guys. So it's 8:50 in the morning. So London has just been open for around 51 minutes. But I'm just going to go over a trade that was taken yesterday. So hopefully that will give you guys some bit more understanding of what's happening. Okay, so if any of you had been following the group, then you would know that the 84500 was my first major target that I was actually looking at, nice half psychological level, and that also lines up exactly to this daily open imbalance. So first of all, this area was actually a really nice area that I was looking to go off. You can see everything lined up really nicely. So just for the time being, this was actually my first target. So let's actually kind of drop down and actually kind of have a talk about. So all of these things that I've got here, these blue, green, and red things, we don't need to have these on. I can turn them off at the moment, but these are just like the different session times. So we can just turn that off. So going in from last week, we had all of these lows that were taken, then price came down, we broke structures, and we left this Asian low that you can see happened at 2 o'clock, Asian low, and price ran back up. And you can see going into 8 a.m. we had our London high, and you can see price come up. We took that out and we traded into a super nice 5-minute candle. I did actually have orders in this last week, and then I did actually close it out, but that is what that is. It's fine. So you can see after we actually started to really break down this whole supply zone, because this was quite a big range and supply zone that we were looking at going in from last week. I did have a few, I was looking for potential buys off this, but just the way price is so weak, if you'd watched the previous videos, you'd understand why I was looking for sells, not buys. But you can see where we had this supply zone, or where we had this demand zone, sorry, you can see small supply starting to really take over. This is our first nice one. Price broke down, we came in, we tested again, and then we really just continued back down from there. So going in from Monday, you can see we had a really nice test of that, basically going in from London. So we had like London to London session highs. So first entries, I'm not going to lie and tell you I caught this because I didn't, but this would have been really nice entries to have caught. I was actually looking for sells from this point going last week, but we never got it. Well, we didn't get it last week anyway. So this would have been the first entry, then dropping it down to the second entry. But like I said, I didn't get the first entry, so that's fine. But dropping it actually down there, what we can see is, let's drop it down a little bit lower. So dropping it on to the SSP about 3 minutes. Okay, so if I put this session range back on, you can see all of this green is London high, or London session, sorry. So you can see we had this price come up, we came down, price come up, then so create this London high. But you can see price actually then broke down out of the first London structure that we had. So you can see after that, it was pretty much just price breaking lower and lower. I was actually looking for entries off of here, because you can see we had our first supply zone met, which is here. Price was starting to shift and break lower, not a full break, but price was starting to shift and break lower. And then I did actually catch entries here. As soon as I saw price break down lower, I was like, okay, cool, that's good enough. Price did actually come up and took me out of break even. And I was like, okay, cool, no worries. Let's kind of see what happens. And then we had one more run up, price started to come down a little bit. And then we had just one more run. And this is when entries were actually taken. So we had this supply zone, which should come off the back of London. So you can see we have our London supply, and then going into the crossover as we're breaking down New York Asian or New York Open, or going into New York Open, we test prior London supply for then continuation to the downside. So we did have some lows in here. We could have actually expected price to come up a little bit more, to be honest with you. I thought that when price is doing this run, I thought we were going to at least test into this 8 hour, but that is only if we had actually really broken out of this 5-minute supply zone. So considering we didn't, and price was still looking quite weak, This kind of give me a bit more conviction for shorts. I mean, if we're looking at the structure, you can see even just on a 5 minute, this is our low, high, and then our lower low. So as long as we don't break above this high, then we should be pretty decent. And you can see we actually didn't break above any of these highs. We were just like manipulating. So the trade that I actually caught was kind of a bit of intuition, if I'm going to be honest with you, because we had so many highs all resting in here. So we had a lot of highs resting in here. And when price came up and dug into this, soon as price actually made kind of a bit of a move down, a lot of people would have been thinking this is a breaker structure to come in and test off this demand to then go long. But I already had the feeling and idea that price was actually going to come down. So soon as I actually saw this 5 minute supply zone actually get created, that for me was actually looking quite nice, because we had just tested into prior London supply, and we had swept all of these highs, because dropping onto a high time frame, you can see there was no close below that. So on the 15 minute, once I saw we had this wick high and price closed below this, I was like, okay, cool. What is in here which I could potentially trade from? And I would have liked to have seen a little bit of a break lower. I would have liked to have seen this low get broken first, or actually the supply get broken. But because for me anyway, just visually, this last buy to sell movement was actually looking quite nice, and we had closed below on the 15 minute down here. So I pulled a fib from the high to the low, and I was looking for a 50% to get tested. And you can see price actually came up really nicely. We came up, tested it, price come down, we come up one more time and started creating like a little bit of a wick. And this is where I got entries just on here, and then as soon as I placed it, we basically just went straight into profit, to be honest with you. And it was just a case of letting price run a lot lower. We had all of these lows which needs to get taken. I was actually expecting price to potentially come back up when we'd broke lower here. I thought price was going to come back up into 30 minute. That would have been nice second entries, and then continuations lower, but we didn't get that. That is fine. But my first major, I had two targets. My first target being this Asian low. You can see price come down, and we started taking that out just before London started to close, or New York started to close. The price consolidated through the Asian, and then the actual first targets were met. I did have a potential feeling that price was actually going to die off a little bit more. But there's no point anticipating a break, because it will never turn out the way you expect. Well, it never really does anyway. So if you've got just targets in mind, just go with that and just hold it to that target. Don't try and milk it, because it's when you try and milk it and when you get greedy, that's when things don't really go according to plan. So because now we've actually invalidated this supply zone, I can take this off. And the one zone which I'm actually really looking for now is going to be this low in here. So you can see this is actually a 10 a.m. This is basically London session low. So what I'm going to do is I am going to map this area out to see if we're going to actually get some reactions from that. We probably could just trade into that, to be honest with you. Yeah, so we've got a lot of the accumulation area in here. I feel like a lot of people would have been placing buys of this point, and I've noticed whenever you see a supply and demand zone which is really clean like this, sometimes they don't actually always hold. So that is actually one thing to keep in mind, kind of similar to the FOMC meetings that happens. Where are we? Yes, so this was, where are we? Okay, cool. So this is AU. This was an FOMC meeting, and a lot of people would have been looking to buy off of this wick. And then you can see price really just trades completely through it. So sometimes high volume news, things like that, the supply and demand zones don't actually always hold. So that is just one thing to actually keep in mind. So again, probably would have been quite nice to have targets all the way down to here, and that could actually be met. But again, realistically, I don't always try and milk my trades. I just get in and get out. So considering now this supply zone has actually been invalidated. I'm going to potentially wait to see if price wants to give a little bit of a correction before coming back down, or if we're actually going to start coming down, and I'm going to look to see what reactions we get in and around this level, because equally price could die off, but because this is our main reaccumulation area, this is the main point which I'm looking at for orders and things to actually start to be held strong. So this is going to be my first area that I'm going to be looking at for potential reactions. To be honest, first of all, I'm going to look for reactions, look for buy reactions at least up into this area, because you can see we've got our low, low, high, lower, low, low, high, lower, low. So now I wanted to see if we can come back and get a lower high. I don't really anticipate price going too much higher. We swept so much liquidity, and now we've had this such strong major down move that we could even kind of just really collapse from there, because we do have a lot of lows in here which do need to be well, that could be filled anyway at some current point. But for the time being, I am going to keep my hands, sit my hands for a little bit, and I do really want to see some sort of reaction of this level. The highest area that I am potentially could expect price to come into is, hold on, let me do that, is into some 12-hour in here, maybe even some, yeah, some 10-hour. So we've got some supply which is actually met or still needs to be met. We've got some inefficiencies and things that need to be fulfilled. But at this current point, this sell-off was actually really nice. That is how I managed to get in on my entries, using different sessions and supply and breaks structure and things, and really just a case of just kind of holding it and seeing what happens. But if you guys got any questions, please let me know. Feel free to fire away and I'll help you as much as I can on this anyway. I will quickly go into AU. AU, if any of you guys have seen my video last time, price had come into in and around these areas. We had some highs here, and I was expecting some short moves back down into some London supply, and then continuation. So we can see we had a big supply zone, or a big inefficiency that was created. Price actually just wicked this London, this New York low. But if you'd really used the whole of this supply zone, then that still actually would have been valid, because when we check it on an hourly, you can see it was actually, this was the big bulk of it, and then this was the minor bulk, and then price continued high. So if you had used this whole said range, or if you just had your stops just below that, that still would have been good. But the call out was there. I was expecting price to come back down into these levels, and actually I was expecting price to come into that 15-minute, which you can see it's already been met at the moment, or basically into the 50%, and the 50% of this range is basically the 7,000, which is a super nice psychological level. But considering we've invalidated that now, I could probably see price coming back up into this region, potentially just taking out this high before making some move to the downside. But yeah, this was a super clean call out back up into supply. So that was really nice to see get paid out. It is pushing up a lot higher than I expected, but that is what that is. Like I did say in the video, that I think this order could still get filled a bit more. Is quite big, so any kind of moves within this area is going to be quite plausible anyway. I was actually really looking for a move last night. We had some lows that were taken. There was a really nice 5-minute candle in here that I was looking for price to come into. We had a break here. I was expecting price to come roll over and then head up. We didn't get that. We just made this big long run. So what I would quite like to see is beginning of the week, we've been quite bullish in this sense. So beginning of the week, we've started this bull run, so potentially Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, going into Friday, end of week rollover. That is potentially something that I would like to see, but I'm going to wait just for confirmations, and I'm going to wait to see what reactions we get in and around this level. I think everyone is really looking at this level right now, to be honest with you. It was either this level or people were looking up higher into this level. I don't really see us breaking this, but again, equally we really could. And this could potentially be one big fat high time frame leg in price. So any kind of move potentially back up past a 50% into this area is going to be quite nice for then shorts, at least into this dotted line, which is a weekly low level. If I just, yeah, so into this low, into this inefficiency, anywhere kind of in within this area, but you can see it on the weekly. We are actually testing this big weekly candle wick that was actually created. So I'm just gonna sit on my hands for a little bit, wait for the 3-day cycle to come over. If you know about the 3-day cycle, if you know, you know. If you don't, then I'd have a look. So yeah, this has been my market update. If any of you guys got any questions, please let me know. Feel free to fire away and I'll help you as much as I can. All right, guys, thank you.